the term itself, risk management, is obsolete, and we have years and years of showing that it doesn't do anything for most people, but just continue to have you losing. The biggest thing we've been able to do is to predict it before it impacts a company, right? So, like we've had calls with general counsels and organizations that are monitoring, we call it monitoring, but all they're doing is looking at RSS feeds and email notifications that come into their organization. And then they go through and they have this huge cognitive load to go through, decipher that, analyze it, and then figure out what's relevant to the actual organization. And so we all just had a call with the general counsel. Like they spend an hour and a half a day going through basically RSS feeds is what it is. And so when you think about the time you spend, so if that's just 5 hours a week and you do that every single week, not 5 hours, was almost like 10 hours a week just going through and reading notifications. And then the goal is to interpret that and to provide the so what. So like as an analyst, one of the things I would always tell analysts is like, well, why does this matter? What's the so what behind why anyone should actually care? And so for us, we're looking at it upstream. So how do we actually monitor when the law is being proposed? And then how do we monitor and watch it all the way through that legislation process or that process for approval? If it's going to get approved, or if it's going to be an executive order, how do you monitor it? Then how do you actually help organizations understand what to do? But really, what we want to do now is like we automate that entire process. So instead of it having like a bunch of analysts doing it, we've trained the model to be able to be basically a national security analyst. So our success story is really predicting it before it happened. Like we predicted a $600 million regulatory exposure because the credit union was unaware of it. The privacy law changed in the state, and the only way they would have found out is if they got a lawsuit from an actual customer, or the regulatory showed up on their door telling them they have to pay it. And um, so that's how we're looking at it before it actually becomes a problem and a crisis, because the only way that people are looking at it right now, there might be a tool that looks at privacy laws, or there might be a tool that's looking at um, some type of regulatory change, but what it doesn't do is tie it back into the business to provide the value of why they should care, and what are the interlocking dependencies from a reputational piece or a finance.
You know, at the risk, and that's pun intended, of repeating what Ron already said, I believe that risk management and risk intelligence or at least represents two sides of the same coin. One is focused on mitigating exposure, and the other is understanding it. And so I agree with wholeheartedly with Ron that risk management is the old way, right? The less effective way. Again, to me, risk management is the process of kind of identifying and assessing and prioritizing risk so that, the limited resources that a company can have can be deployed to protect those assets, the mission, and the critical operations of people. However, risk management is the next evolution, and that's what we do, which is the ability to synthesize that data, the context, and also add that human insight, the nerd herd, to anticipate risk before they materialize. And so I hear Ron beat that drum all the time, and folks are understanding, okay, we get it now, the light comes on. So what we do is at risk intelligence, we look at the broader landscape, the geopolitical shift, the behavior, emerging technologies, and systemic vulnerabilities to inform proactive and decision making. So that's what I understand that we do and that we do better.
Like that's one of the things I always tell my students, and I even tell my daughter and my nieces and nephews. Like if you can't figure out how to leverage it to help you do your job better, and then how you can help replicate that across some of your peers or an organization, like you're not going to have that differentiator, because people are, that's literally an interview question now, is like, how are you leveraging AI to go faster? I mean, we are asking that of every single person that joins our team, right? So like, well, how are you using it? And then the other piece is like, how do you go figure out how to apply it to your role? And so that domain expertise is what we bring in that is a part of our other differentiation piece. So you're always just playing catch up. So the term itself, risk management, is obsolete, and we have years and years of showing that it doesn't do anything for most people, but just continue to have you losing.
Is that why you started Tacilent?
Yeah. I mean, that's part of it, right? The looking at how you can apply like an intelligence approach to not reacting and predicting, right? Like we're all intelligence professionals. So one of the things, if we were, I used to call it like classified book reporting or telling people about something that already happened. Like it's just classified news, right? Like it doesn't, what value does that bring um, like to the end user, to the customer? Like the silo piece is the number one thing like that I just heard now, where like there's a
Mhm.
thousand tools in the organization, then you got to get a license to be able to use it too, right? So like if Mike has a tool, I got to call
Right.
Mike. It's like, hey, Mike, can I mean, we saw this happen in the bureau as well, right? Like Mike might have a subscription to something and I'm in a different field office and I'm going to call up to Mike or hit up Ken at headquarters or wherever it is. Like, hey, can we get a license to get access to that information? And then like we still need a person that sits there in front of the screen to interpret all of it, to make the draw the connections.
Um, Again, I think that's a losing battle, and I think companies who continue in that legacy mindset are going to continuously find themselves behind their competitors who are able to adopt responsible AI. So the companies that can adopt responsible AI and train it, develop the proper agents, or work with us to help develop those agents, they're going to have a leg up on the legacy competition.
Yeah, no, like you know the part that people don't realize too is like the to to have the domain expertise to apply from a risk perspective or an intelligence part. Like you can't just, because people ask like, oh, I can just go do this in GPT. I was like, you can do it in GPT, maybe one question. And so, but like no AI solution or platform is a fire and forget method, right? It's able that is not currently being done, right? And so to Ken's point, like we sit over the top, connect all those different silos together, and then our platform is functioning as an analyst. So like the having a virtual risk analyst that is continuously being updated and trained by the experts, that doesn't exist right now in the market. It is. And so when you think about the time you spend, so if that's just 5 hours a week and you do that every single week, not 5 hours, was almost like 10 hours a week just going through and reading notifications. And then the goal is to interpret that and to provide the so what. So like as an analyst, one of the things I would always tell analysts is like, well, why does this matter? What's the so what behind why anyone should actually care? And so for us, we're looking at it upstream. So how do we actually monitor when the law is being proposed? And then how do we monitor and watch it all the way through that legislation process or that process for approval? If it's going to get approved, or if it's going to be an executive order, how do you monitor it? Then how do you actually help organizations understand what to do? But really, what we want to do now is like we automate that entire process. So instead of it having like a bunch of analysts doing it, we've trained the model to be able to be basically a national security analyst.